In the heart of a city that never slept, where lights flickered like restless stars and the hum of traffic wove a ceaseless tapestry, Elara moved through her days like a shadow chasing the sun. At 30, she was a marketing manager, her desk a fortress of spreadsheets and deadlines, her phone a relentless chorus of notifications. Each morning, she woke to the sharp trill of her alarm, her heart already racing before her feet touched the cold floor. Coffee was her ritual, not for pleasure, but for survival, a bitter fuel to push through the fog of sleepless nights. Her apartment, small and cluttered, held traces of ambition, a vision board pinned with dreams of travel, a yoga mat gathering dust, a half-read book on mindfulness she'd promised herself to finish. The world pressed in on Elara. Her inbox overflowed with demands from her boss, each email a stone added to the weight she carried. Meetings blurred into one another, voices sharp with urgency, while her own voice felt small, swallowed by the clamor. At night, she scrolled through social media, watching curated lives unfold, friends with perfect vacations, colleagues with promotions, strangers with smiles she couldn't muster. The comparison gnawed at her, a quiet ache that whispered she wasn't enough. She'd lie awake, her mind a storm of what-ifs. What if she missed a deadline? What if she said the wrong thing in tomorrow's presentation? What if this was all her life would ever be? Elara's heart, once open, had grown guarded. She passed co-workers in the hallway with a tight smile, avoiding their eyes. She listened to her best friend, Mia, share stories of heartbreak or joy, but found herself nodding absently, her thoughts drifting to her own worries. She wanted to care, to truly hear, but her mind was a crowded room, each thought shouting for attention. Compassion felt like a luxury she couldn't afford, a flame too weak to withstand the winds of her anxiety. She didn't mean to grow distant, but the city's pace, the weight of expectations, had carved a hollow space within her. One evening, after a day when a client's criticism had stung more than usual, Elara sat on her couch, staring at the city skyline through her window. The lights glittered, beautiful but cold, like promises unkept. She wondered when she'd last felt truly at peace, when her heart hadn't raced with the fear of falling behind. The question lingered heavy, unanswered. In that moment, she felt the weight of something ancient, something the wise ones of old might call dukkha, the suffering woven into life's fabric, the restlessness of a mind clinging to what it cannot control. She didn't know the word, not yet, but she felt its truth in her bones. The city hummed on, indifferent, and Elara closed her eyes, wishing for a moment of stillness, a single breath free from the churn of her thoughts. She didn't know that tomorrow, in a quiet corner of a noisy world, she'd find a spark of something new, a chance to see differently, to begin again. Elara's mornings were a blur of routine, but this one felt heavier, as if the air itself pressed against her. She left her apartment, coffee in hand, her steps quick through the city's pulse. The park near her office was her shortcut, a patch of green amidst concrete, though she rarely noticed its beauty. Today, her eyes caught on something unexpected, a figure seated on a bench, still as stone, wrapped in robes the color of saffron. An elderly monk, his face lined with years, sat with eyes closed, hands resting gently in his lap. The world rushed past him, joggers and commuters weaving through, yet he seemed untouched, a quiet island in a restless sea. She slowed, curiosity tugging at her. His calm was magnetic, a contrast to the knot in her chest. Elara hesitated, then sat on the bench's far end, pretending to check her phone. The monk opened his eyes, their warmth catching her off guard. "Good morning," he said, his voice soft, like a breeze over still water. "Do you always carry such a storm within you?" The question, gentle but piercing, made her breath catch. She stammered, unsure how to respond to a stranger who saw her so clearly. His name was Tenzin, he said, a monk who'd wandered many paths before this city called him. Elara found herself talking about her job, the deadlines, the sleepless nights. The words spilled out, surprising her. Tenzin listened, not with the hurried nods she knew from others, but with a presence that made her feel heard. "You carry much," he said at last. "But what if you could set it down, even for a moment?" She frowned, unsure. Set it down? Her life was a treadmill she couldn't just stop. Tenzin smiled as if he'd heard her unspoken doubt. "There's an old saying," he said, his voice steady, like a heartbeat. "As a single lamp can light 1,000 others, so too can one act of compassion ignite countless hearts." Elara tilted her head, the words stirring something deep, though she didn't yet understand. "Compassion?" she asked. "For who? I barely have time for myself." Tenzin's eyes crinkled. "Start where you are," he said. "With yourself, with a stranger, with a moment. Compassion is a seed. Plant it and see what grows." He spoke of metta, a practice of wishing well to all beings, including oneself. It sounded simple, almost too simple for the chaos of her life. Yet his calm, his quiet joy made her wonder. Could a single act, a single shift in her heart, ease the weight she carried? Tenzin invited her to try to sit with him the next morning, to learn to breathe with intention. She nodded, unsure but drawn to the possibility of something different. As she left the park, the city's noise felt a little softer, the monk's words lingering like a melody she couldn't yet hum. Elara returned to the park the next morning, her steps hesitant, but pulled by a quiet hope. The city woke around her, horns blaring, but Tenzin was there, seated as before, his presence a steady anchor. She sat beside him, clutching her coffee, its warmth a small comfort against the chill of her doubts. "I don't know what I'm doing here," she admitted, her voice low. Tenzin's smile was gentle, like sunlight breaking through clouds. "You're here," he said. "That's enough." He spoke of seeing with the heart, a phrase that felt like an old key to a forgotten door. "The heart sees what the mind obscures," he said. "Your thoughts rush like a river, carrying you away. But what if you sat by the river, watching it flow?" Elara frowned, unsure. Her mind was no river, it was a storm, relentless and loud. Tenzin invited her to try a simple practice, to sit, to breathe, to notice her thoughts without chasing them. She closed her eyes, awkward at first, her body restless. Tenzin's voice guided her, soft and unhurried. "Breathe in, feel the air fill you. Breathe out, let the weight soften." Her breath was shallow, her mind a jumble of worries, deadlines, emails, a presentation. She'd barely prepared. Each thought tugged at her, demanding attention. "Notice them," Tenzin said, "but don't hold them. Let them pass, like leaves on water." She tried, but the leaves felt like stones, heavy and unyielding. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours, she couldn't tell. Slowly a small shift came. A thought about work arose, sharp and urgent, but instead of spiraling, She watched it fade, replaced by the sound of a bird in the park. Her breath deepened, a rhythm she hadn't noticed before. For a fleeting moment, the storm in her mind stilled, and she glimpsed something new, a quiet space within her, vast and untouched. It startled her, this stillness, like finding a room in a house she'd lived in all her life but never seen. Tenzin spoke again, his words weaving through her thoughts. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from clinging to what we want, to what we fear. Your anxiety is a clinging, Elara, to a future you cannot control. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. But how do I stop? She asked. It's all I know. He nodded, as if her question was a step forward. You begin by seeing, he said. Seeing with the heart means looking at your fears, your pain, without judgment. Only then can you let go. Elara left the park that morning with a fragile sense of possibility. The city's noise returned, but she carried Tenzin's words, the idea of seeing differently. At work, when a coworker snapped at her, she paused, noticing her urge to snap back. Instead, she breathed, trying to see with the heart, to wonder what weight her coworker carried. It wasn't easy, and she didn't always succeed, but each attempt felt like a small rebellion against the storm within her. Elara's days began to carry a new rhythm, subtle but persistent, like a melody half remembered. She returned to the park each morning, sitting with Tenzin, learning to watch her breath, to let her thoughts drift like clouds across a wide sky. The practice was slow, often frustrating, but it left her with moments of clarity that lingered, fragile yet real. At work, though, the world pressed harder. Her inbox swelled, her boss's expectations loomed, and the city's pulse seemed to mock her attempts at peace. Yet Tenzin's words, seeing with the heart, echoed, urging her to try something new. One afternoon, she noticed a coworker, Sam, struggling with a project. His desk was a chaos of papers, his eyes tired, his voice sharp with stress. Elara recognized that look, it mirrored her own sleepless nights. Something stirred in her, a faint pull to reach out. She hesitated, her own tasks piling up, but the proverb Tenzin had shared came back. As a single lamp can light 1,000 others, so too can one act of compassion ignite countless hearts. Could it be that simple? She wasn't sure, but she decided to try. After lunch, she approached Sam, offering to help with a report he'd been wrestling with. Her voice was tentative, unsure if she'd overstepped. Sam looked surprised, then wary, as if kindness were a trap. I'm fine, he said curtly, turning back to his screen. Elara felt a sting, her cheeks flushing. She'd tried to see with the heart, to offer a small light, but it felt snuffed out. That evening, she returned to the park, her disappointment heavy. Tenzin listened as she poured out her frustration, her voice trembling with doubt. Compassion is not a transaction, Tenzin said gently, his eyes steady as a calm sea. It's a seed planted without knowing if it will grow. The Buddha spoke of karma, actions that ripple outward, touching lives in ways we may never see. Elara frowned, picking at the edge of her sleeve. But it didn't help, she said. Sam didn't want it. Tenzin's smile was soft, unhurried. Did it change you, offering that help? He asked. She paused, considering. The act had felt awkward, but it had also stirred something warm in her, a flicker of connection to someone else's struggle. Tenzin told her a story of the Buddha, who once offered food to a starving man, only for the man to hoard it, mistrustful. The Buddha didn't stop giving, Tenzin said. He knew each act plants a seed for others and for oneself. Elara nodded, the proverb's meaning sinking deeper. Her small gesture to Sam wasn't wasted. It was a beginning, a shift in her own heart. As she walked home, the city's lights seemed less cold, and she wondered what other seeds she might plant, even if their growth remained unseen. Elara's world tilted sharply one gray morning when an email arrived, its subject line stark. Project review, urgent. Her latest campaign, months of late nights and frayed nerves, had fallen flat. The client's feedback was curt, slicing through her confidence like a cold wind. At the office, her boss's voice was sharp, her colleagues' glances heavy with unspoken judgment. Elara felt her chest tighten, her breath shallow, as if the air itself had turned against her. By noon, she sat in a bathroom stall, head in her hands, the familiar storm of anxiety raging within her thoughts of failure, of not being enough, crashing like waves against a crumbling shore. She skipped the park that evening, too raw to face Tenzin's calm. But the next morning, guilt and longing drew her back. He was there, as always, his presence steady amid the city's churn. She told him about the failed project, her voice brittle, expecting sympathy. Instead, Tenzin looked at her with quiet clarity. "This storm," he said, "it lives in you, but it is not you. Can you sit with it, Elara, without running?" She wanted to argue. How could she not run from this pain, this fear? But his eyes held no judgment, only an invitation. He guided her to sit, to breathe, to turn toward the storm rather than away. "See with the heart," he said, his voice a soft tether. "Look at this pain, not as an enemy, but as a guest. What does it carry?" Elara closed her eyes, reluctant, her mind a whirl of self-criticism. She tried to watch her thoughts, as Tenzin had taught her, but they were relentless images of her boss's frown, the client's email, her own imagined ruin. Yet, as she breathed, something shifted. The thoughts didn't vanish, but they grew less solid, like clouds thinning in the wind. Tenzin spoke of Anika, the truth that all things pass: joy, pain, success, failure. "Your fear clings to what is fleeting," he said. "This moment, this mistake, is not your whole story." Elara's eyes stung, his words touching a wound she hadn't named. She saw, in a fleeting glimpse, that her anxiety wasn't just about the project, it was about herself, her need to prove her worth. "What if I start with me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "What if I can't even be kind to myself?" Tenzin's smile was warm, like a hearth after a long night. "That's where compassion begins," he said. "See your own heart, Elara, with the same gentleness you'd offer a friend." She tried in that moment to wish herself well, to hold her own pain without judgment. It felt strange, almost impossible, but as she breathed, a small warmth grew, fragile but real. The storm didn't vanish, but it softened, and she saw a path through it, one breath at a time. Elara began to notice the world differently, as if a veil had lifted, however slightly. The city still roared, her work still demanded, but the practice of seeing with the heart had taken root, delicate yet stubborn. She carried Tenzin's teachings like a small flame, flickering but persistent. At work, she paused before responding to a sharp email, breathing, asking herself what weight the sender might carry. On the subway, she met the eyes of a tired mother, offering a smile instead of looking away. These acts were small, but each one felt like a step, a quiet defiance against the isolation she'd known. One evening, her friend Mia called, voice heavy with a recent argument with her partner. Elara listened, truly listened, setting aside her own worries. She heard the tremble in Mia's words, saw with her heart the pain beneath them. Instead of offering quick advice, she asked gentle questions, letting Mia unfold her story. When they hung up, Mia's voice was lighter, and Elara felt a warmth in her chest, a connection that eased her own restlessness. Later at work, she noticed Sam, the co-worker who'd brushed off her help, struggling again. This time she didn't offer a task, but a question. "Rough day?" He shrugged, but his guard soft, and they talked briefly, a crack in the wall between them. Tenzin, in their morning meetings, spoke of Sangha, the community that binds us all. The Buddha found truth not alone, but among others, he said, his voice steady as a river's flow. Your heart opens when you see others as part of you, their joys and pains woven into your own. Elara thought of Mia, of Sam, of the strangers she passed each day. Could they all be part of her story? The proverb returned to her. As a single lamp can light 1,000 others, so too can one act of compassion ignite countless hearts. Her small gestures, listening, smiling, asking, were lighting lamps she couldn't yet see. One morning, Tenzin shared a story of the Buddha, who once sat with a grieving mother, not preaching but listening, offering presence as medicine. Compassion doesn't fix, Tenzin said, it holds. It says, I see you, and you are not alone. Elara felt those words settle deep, a reminder that her acts, however small, were enough. At work that day, when a colleague apologized for a mistake, Elara didn't brush it off but nodded, saying, We all mess up sometimes. The colleague's relief was palpable, and Elara realized her words had been a lamp, however faint. Her anxiety hadn't vanished, it still crept in, sharp and familiar, but it felt less like a cage. Each act of connection, each moment of seeing with the heart, built a bridge to something larger, a sense that she wasn't alone in her struggles. As she left the park one morning, Tenzin's eyes crinkled with a quiet pride. You're beginning to see, he said, how one heart can touch many. Elara smiled, carrying that truth into the day, a small light growing stronger. Elara's life didn't change all at once, but in the quiet spaces between her days, something was shifting, like a river carving a new path through stone. She woke each morning with a breath, not a jolt. Her first thought no longer a list of fears, but a moment to feel the air, to anchor herself. The park had become her refuge, Tenzin's presence a guide, but the real work happened elsewhere, in the small choices she made, the way she met the world. Her anxiety, once a constant shadow, now came in waves, and she was learning to ride them, to see with the heart even when her mind trembled. She began a new practice, one Tenzin called metta, a way of sending kindness first to herself, then outward. Sitting on her couch at night, city lights flickering beyond her window, she closed her eyes and whispered silent wishes. May I be safe. May I be at peace. The words felt clumsy at first, like speaking a language she barely knew. But night after night, they grew familiar, a soft blanket over her restless heart. She extended the wishes to others, to Mia, to Sam, to her stern boss, even to the strangers who brushed past her in the subway. Each wish was a thread, weaving her into something larger, a tapestry of shared humanity. At work, the change showed in small ways. When a meeting grew tense, Elara noticed her urge to shrink, to let anxiety speak. Instead, she breathed, grounding herself, and offered a calm suggestion that shifted the room's energy. Her colleagues noticed, one even asking, "How do you stay so steady?" Elara smiled, unsure how to explain the quiet transformation within her. She thought of Tenzin's teachings, of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, the way mindfulness and intention could shape a life. "It's a practice," she said simply, and left it at that. One evening, alone in her apartment, Elara found her old vision board. Its dreams of travel and success faded, but still bright with hope. She didn't feel the old ache of comparison, only a gentle curiosity about who she was becoming. The proverb Tenzin had shared about a single lamp lighting 1,000 others felt true now, not as a grand gesture, but as a daily truth. Her kindness, her presence was lighting lamps in ways she couldn't measure. The idiom, to see with the heart, had become her lens, a way to meet herself and others with gentleness, to find peace in the mess of being human. Elara's anxiety hadn't vanished, nor had the city's demands, but they no longer defined her. She was learning to walk a path of balance, to hold both her struggles and her joys with equal care. As she sat in the park one morning, Tenzin looked at her, his eyes warm with knowing. "The heart grows quiet," he said, "when it learns to love what is." Elara nodded, feeling the truth of it, a stillness that wasn't perfect, but was hers, a gift she could carry forward. Elara's mornings in the park had woven themselves into the fabric of her life, each one a quiet stitch in a tapestry of change. The city still hummed, its demands unyielding, but she moved through it differently now, her steps lighter, her heart open to the small moments that once passed unnoticed. One afternoon, she saw Sam at the office, his shoulders hunched over a new project, his face etched with familiar strain. She paused, remembering her own journey, the weight she'd carried until Tenzin's teachings lit a path. She approached him, not with advice, but with a question. "Want to grab a coffee and talk it through?" This time Sam nodded, and they sat, sharing stories of pressure and small triumphs, a connection forming where a wall once stood. Elara shared the proverb that had guided her. As a single lamp can light 1,000 others, so too can one act of compassion ignite countless hearts. Sam listened, his eyes softening, and she spoke of seeing with the heart, of looking beyond the surface to the shared struggles beneath. He didn't say much, but the next day she saw him offer a kind word to another colleague. A small spark passed forward. Elara smiled, realizing her own lamp had lit another, its glow rippling outward in ways she might never fully see. In the park, Tenzin spoke of the Bodhisattva, one who lived to ease others' suffering, not for reward, but for the joy of giving. "You've begun this path," he said, his voice warm as a hearth. "Each act, each moment of presence, plants a seed for 1,000 lamps." Elara felt the weight of his words, not heavy but uplifting, like a breeze carrying her forward. She thought of the Buddha, who sat with the broken and the hopeful, offering not answers but presence, a light that endured through centuries. One quiet morning, Elara sat alone in the park, Tenzin away on a journey of his own. She closed her eyes, breathing in the cool air, and practiced metta as he'd taught her. "May all beings be safe, be at peace." The words flowed, not just for herself or those she knew, but for the city, for the world, for the countless hearts she'd never meet. She opened her eyes to find a young woman nearby, watching her with curiosity, perhaps seeking her own shelter from the storm. Elara smiled, an invitation, and the woman sat, asking softly, "How do you find such calm?" Elara paused, then shared her story, her words a lamp offered freely. As you listen now, dear one, know that you, too, carry a light. Your heart, with its joys and its pains, is a lamp waiting to shine. Try this. Breathe deeply. Wish yourself peace. Then send that wish to someone else, a friend, a stranger, even someone who's hurt you. See with your heart, and let one small act of kindness ripple outward. The path to peace begins where you are, one breath, one moment, one lamp at a time.